Hello everyone and Happy New Year. We're going to start off with Chapter 4 for this second semester. Keep in mind that you have an ebook now. You should have downloaded that ebook. Your homework assignment is located right on the right corner in red. It says Self-Review 4.1 through 4.1 and you'll type Listing 4.1. And this is from the ebook, so keep that in mind. I'm going to recommend that you also turn to page 159 or 160 in your ebook. This will help you follow along with this short video, I hope. Let's get started. Why don't we see an analogy how creating objects and methods work. Think about when you're at home, if you play a video game at all, you will notice that any object within that video game has functions, and when you deal with functions, you're dealing with the characteristics of that object, how that object moves, how it has special features within that video. It also deals with engineering. If you were to design maybe a mobile device or even a computer, you would need to have special functions within that computer, and those functions are known as methods or attributes. So let's take a look at this video right here to see how this relates to everyday life. Hey, don't pay attention to those ads that was shown on the bottom of the video. And I know you're thinking, what in the world is Dr. Jones thinking about? Well, that's something I used to watch when I was younger, and it's the old version of Spider-Man. But think about it as far as Chapter 4. Chapter 4 deals with objects, and Spider-Man is considered an object. And you would have to learn how to create the different methods as shown here within that Spider-Man object. And the best way to understand methods is to pay attention to the verbs within that object. So notice certain verbs such as swing, climb, you have spins shown here. My object's moving within this Prezi. You have, and then what does he do when he's having those verbs or those methods? What is he doing? It's at night, is dealing with the web, going at a certain distance. He's arriving at scenes, is at night. And notice I put old because this video is somewhat old, and of course it has an alias of Peter Parker. So when you think of methods, think of the verbs within that object, or what is known in the textbook as attributes. So in the ebook, you turn to page 160 in that ebook, and I'm going to read some of the important concepts within section 4.1 that you need to know about. For instance, and notice here, very small, so if you can't see it, I recommend that you have your ebook open. But notice it says in Chapter 1, we introduce basic object-oriented concepts, including a brief overview of objects and classes. In Chapter 3, we use several predefined classes from the Java standard class library to create objects and use them for the particular functionality they provide. So think about the objects within the Java standard class library when we opened up the Java API at java.sun.com. Notice that we use the string class, we use the applet, we use math class. Those are different classes within that Java library. Now in this chapter, we're going to turn our attention to writing our own classes. So instead of you using the predefined classes that were in chapter 3, you're going to learn how to write your own. This can be very complex because you have to understand the concept of how to create a class and then think about the methods that would go in that class. In order to create methods within a particular class, you have to learn how to create that object as well. So think about those string classes, math class, remember the random class, all of those classes they are predefined, but now you're going to create your own. Although existing class libraries provide many useful classes, the essence of object-oriented programming development is the process of designing and implementing our own classes to suit our specific needs. So remember, keep those concepts in mind. What verbs will I use as my methods? What will my object be? And how could I conceptually place this into a class? Now it states here, recall the basic relationship between an object and a class. A class is a blueprint of an object. The class represents the concept of an object, and any object created from that class is a realization of that concept. So you just, again, think about all of the methods or verbs that's associated when creating that object, and that will give you an understanding of what your concept will be. Okay, so I mentioned about chapter 3 already. I'm going to go ahead and skip that, but just keep in mind that it says here, recall that an object has a state, which is defined by the values of the attributes associated with that object. The attributes of a student may include the student's name, address, major, and grade point average. The student class establishes that each student has these attributes. Each student object stores the value of these attributes for a particular student. In Java, an object's attributes are defined by the variables declared within the class. An object also has behaviors, which are defined by the operations associated with the object. The operations of a student would include the ability to update that student's address and compute that student's grade point average. The student class defines the operations such as the details of how a grade point average is computed. These operations can then be executed on or by a particular student object. Note that the behaviors of an object may modify the state of that object. In Java, an object operations are defined by the methods declared within the class. Figure 4.1 lists some examples of classes with some attributes and operations that might be defined for objects of those classes. It's up to the program designer to determine what attributes and operations are needed, which depends on the purpose of the program and the role a particular object plays in that purpose. Now, I read a lot here, but to visually understand how an object would have attributes and an object would have behaviors, you would need to look at figure 4.1 as shown here. Notice that within a student class you have attributes such as the name, address, major, and grade point average. Now the attributes are also known as the methods. And the methods, first you would create a class, then you would create the methods. And then in order to create the methods, we would use something called operations. So the operations are the actual method headers or the programming that is associated with that method. So you would set an address, you would set a major, and you would compute a grade point average. Now notice that within those operations, these are verbs. So think about the verbs that go along with that method. So just that's the best way to think about it. Now, I have a video to give you a visual understanding of how you would conceptually understand classes, objects, and methods. So I've created it here, and you're going to have to actually type it into your computer. So let's go ahead and type that in. I'm going to go back. I might have to, can't copy and paste it. So best thing to do is to write it down, and I'm going to do that. Give me a second. Okay, if you typed in that URL correctly, that means you will get this screen right here. You need to watch the video to understand how classes, objects, and methods work, how it deals with attributes and operations, and that will give you a better understanding of figure 4.1. Once you watch this video, you should be able to complete the homework assignment to get a better understanding of how creating classes and methods work, and you'll turn in your assignment to Edmodo. Remember, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, drjonestech@gmail.com. Have a great evening. Bye.